taking photos on a cell phone used to be the mark of an amateur, someone that really didn't know what they're doing, just had a camera, just took a photo, didn't worry about it. But more and more, we're seeing a lot of commercial productions actually use iPhones for their videos, for their photos. What's up with that?
When I heard that we were going to be shooting this Apple event on iPhone,
this event being shot on a tiny little iPhone,
through its lensing, light levels, the dynamic range, I really
incredibly impressed with the quality of the footage. First second I saw it, I literally said, this is the iPhone footage?
So the new iPhone 15 came out, and there's been a lot of buzz about the camera on it, and everyone says that's the biggest new change with it. But if I'm being honest, I look at a photo from one iPhone and I look at a photo at another iPhone, and I don't feel like they're that different. So what's actually going on here? What are people talking about? What it boils down to is two main differences. Number one, USB-C, and number two, Apple ProRes RAW. So of course we know about USB-C being added to because Apple wants you to buy another charger, right? But really it goes a little bit more in depth than just that. With USB-C, it actually opens up some interesting options. USB-C offers a lot more speed for being able to transfer things. So what does that mean? Well, it means that you can record video and take photos directly to a hard drive, and then take that hard drive, plug it into a computer, and edit it. So that's a huge win for production, for being able to take the footage from an iPhone and being able to very quickly transfer terabytes worth of data. But what also happens when you plug in a hard drive, you actually get access to more camera settings. So what am I talking about here? So with Apple ProRes RAW, what you're able to do is capture tons of data as you're doing your video production. It means you've got a lot of flexibility after you've shot your video to be able to do whatever the heck you want with it. But the main downside with using this is that it uses tons of storage. Like, I'm talking about gigabytes per second. Like, it's just a huge file size. So being able to plug in a 2 terabyte drive is just like putting another SD card in your camera, right? You're gonna go through it eventually that day, but with Apple ProRes RAW, like, it fills it up so fast. And to avoid getting super technical and everything, basically Apple ProRes RAW, it's a really nice codec that allows you all of that flexibility in post to be able to do whatever the heck you want with it and produce a really great, awesome image at the end. So really, that begs the question, why do we not all use iPhones? Because that's what Steve Jobs would want. So why do we even bother using our cameras? Like, what's different about the cameras that we use to take our photos and take our video and an iPhone? We need to understand the difference between the two, right? The main creative difference between using an iPhone and a mirrorless camera is that where the thinking actually happens. When you take a photo with an iPhone, right, you just hit the button and you're done. You don't have to think about anything else. It just handles everything, right? But when you're taking video on a mirrorless camera, you've got a lot of choices to make. You've got to figure out what ISO you want, what shutter speed you want, what part of the image you want to focus on. There's tons of stuff that has to happen before you hit the record button. So really, all of the thinking happens in one of two places. Either the person taking the video or software does it. But what Apple did very sneakily is, for years, they've been focusing just on improving their software for their cameras while leaving their hardware enough time to catch up with what their software can do. So what we've done is we've created a very smart device for taking photos, for taking video, and just let time dictate how quickly their hardware actually can catch up with it and produce really high quality results. The next difference that you're gonna see is editing. What's the focus on editing, right? So everything that's captured in camera with an iPhone versus a mirrorless camera, a lot of that stuff has to then be interpreted by some sort of editing, whether it's an editor or whether you have some sort of program that you hit. Editing is really gonna be where a big difference happens from one piece to the next. And then finally, the big difference between the two, of course, is the hardware, right? iPhones really struggle with flare and bokeh. They're just physics make it so that bokeh is almost impossible. And the lens flare, like the coating that they have on their lenses, really kind of lets the iPhone down. And that's a big difference in why you would maybe want to use a professional camera, a professional grade mirrorless camera. But let's take these ideas out a couple years. Where are we going with this? What happens when you take the physical dimensions of a professional mirrorless camera and then combine it with the kind of software that Apple is using in their products? Well, there's a Sony ZV1 that was just announced this year, and it's the first kind of stab that Sony's making at taking a professional camera and throwing some extra software at it, throwing some AI in some of the processing that happens behind the scenes with the camera to make it easier to use and make it so that you can produce videos quicker without as much input. And I think that's a big thing where the industry is going, is we're starting to have software really help us out. We're realizing that it can help and make things much more smoothly. That's why Apple, on their last event, shot the whole thing on iPhone. And it's also why Pro Tip Tuesday last week was also shot on iPhone. Bet you didn't notice. But that's all we have this week. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.